Okay, thank you very much. I understand we're now live, so welcome to everybody this morning. Go through the formalities. I'm Greg Peck, Chair of the Pensions Committee. I would like to welcome you all to this meeting this morning. This meeting is being held in person at County Hall and is being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel. A fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If the alarms sound, we must evacuate County Hall. In the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point located in the main car park. Thank you. So moving on to the meeting and the agenda. The first item is apologies for absence, which Nicola will take.
Thank you. Apologies today received from Councillor the Lord John Fuller and Councillor Martin Story.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. They've all been circulated. Has anybody got any issues with them, or are they happy for me to sign them off? Yeah, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare? Can you raise your hands if you... No? Okay. Right, moving on to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the administrative report, which is in the hands of Glenn. So, hand over to you, Glenn.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. On the screen, you'll see the recommendations for this report. The report is to note, and we do have 3 admission agreements to consider, but we'll come back to those recommendations at the end of the report. So I'd like to talk you through some highlights first of all. This is a quarterly update to Pensions Committee on the operations of the Norfolk Pension Fund and wider national picture of the LGPS. And we start with news of government reforms. It was this time last year, 12 months ago, that we first briefed committee on the Fit for Future consultation. This is a package of proposals aimed at reforming LGPS investment pooling and also fund governance. And this Fit for the Future consultation and the regulations will be enacted through the Pensions Bill. The Pensions Bill is currently progressing through and being debated in Parliament. On the 20th of November this year, MHCLG published a technical consultation, and this was seeking further views on the 2 draft statutory instruments, the regulations. The first of those covering pooling, management and investment of funds, and that's going to appear as Regulations 2026. And then the other, LGPS Amendment Regulations 2026, which would cover more of the scheme governance requirements. Now, these draft regulations are intended to implement the proposals set out in the Fit for Future consultation. We anticipate that these regulations will come into effect from 1st of April next year, and many of the proposals have a 6-month window for implementation, which will take us through to end of September next year. We'll cover the specifics of the technical consultation in more detail under item 9 on today's agenda. The actual publication of the technical consultation arrived too late for us to include it in your papers, but we do have a slide presentation under item 9 today. Moving on to another live consultation, it was in October this time that the government launched Access and Protection. Now, this consultation covers 4 proposals regarding access to scheme benefits. The first of those, now they are bullet pointed on the slide, we will see that the normal minimum pensions age will increase from 55 to 57 in the LGPS from April 2028. There will be protection for anyone in the scheme as at the 4th of November 2021. Another proposal is LGPS membership for elected members and mayors. Academies and application for direction. This is aimed at simplifying how academies and other employers can consolidate their participation in a single LGPS fund. And then finally, new fair deal. This will remove the requirement for contractors to enter into admission agreements for new or relet and outsourced contracts from next year. And then finally on this slide, just to remind you, we previously highlighted to Pensions Committee the potential impacts on the fund of both devolution and local government reorganisation. We continue to engage corporately in a number of work streams supporting these reforms, and we'll keep committee updated in terms of any further developments impacting on the fund. Moving on, and this time turning to the National Scheme Advisory Board. The board held its first annual assembly back in October for Pension Committee and board, local pension board chairs. The board has stated that it's keen to continue dialogue and engagement with the LGPS. As discussed at our September meeting, the Scheme Advisory Board has written to the local government minister requesting advice from government in relation to the Palestine Solidarity Campaign's letter and position statement. Committee and board members heard from the LGA and Scheme Advisory Board Secretariat at our November training event that the board has also the board commissioned legal advice from Nigel Giffen KC in response to similar allegations made last year. And while the Scheme Advisory Board is waiting for the government to respond, it's considering whether further legal advice on behalf of the LGPS is required. Also, in relation to this matter, the fund has recently been contacted by Norfolk Divest regarding the fund's exposure to Israeli bonds. A response has been provided confirming that as at the end of November, the fund has no exposure to Israeli government bonds. Moving on to our risk management, we have a full update in terms of the fund's risks and risk mitigation under item 6 on today's agenda. And specifically referring to Appendix B in your papers, page 28, it's been another strong quarter for performance against service targets relating to our member services, payroll and technical systems teams. These are important indicators for our service and feature in LGPS benchmarking and also annual report disclosure. And then finally, congratulations to our governance team who won the Governance Award at the recent LAPF Investment Award ceremony in October. The judges specifically commented and commended the strong local pension board participation. So congratulations also to our local pensions board. We turn now to fund communication and engagement. Annual benefit statements were posted to over 60,000 active and deferred scheme members in September. The booklet provides members with their personal pension statements and also useful information about the fund and the wider scheme. And the annual benefit statement is also used to promote pension clinics. Now, these are face-to-face meetings with scheme members held in Norwich, Great Yarmouth, Kings Lynn and Cromer this year. Feedback from the scheme members who attended these clinics was really positive. So well done and thank you to our staff who attended and facilitated those clinics. At the end of November, we posted out our primetime newsletter to over 27,000 retired members. The publication contains general news about the fund, pension payment dates, and a summary of our financial accounts. It also included articles on our enhancement and upgrading to member self-service, and an article about staying safe from scams and cybercrime. And it was also during November that we held our latest employer forum. The fund actuary presented an overview of the fund's progress with this year's valuation, presenting both detailed whole fund results and employer-specific results. There was good engagement from those employers who attended on that subject. We also encouraged our employers to consider the implications of the access and protection consultation that I mentioned earlier, and consider responding to government with any comments. Fund officers also presented updates on LGPS pooling and key developments within our pension services function. Moving on in terms of some team news, twice a year we get together with the whole team. There's another team event planned in early December. This is an opportunity for the 55 staff of the Norfolk Pension Fund to hear service updates, participate in discussions, provide feedback on a range of topics. Later, or on the 12th, we'll be talking about annual service plans, business resilience, cyber security, and we also have a demo of our new member portal lined up as well. I should also mention under Pension Fund team, the organisational restructure of our governance and frameworks function. This is underway following the announcement of 2 retirements. A new structure will go live on the 1st of January, and a managed handover of tasks and responsibilities is planned. And then finally on this slide, Pensions Committee and board members attended a 2-day training event in November. Thank you to all those who participated, both in person and online. It was an opportunity to learn about topics in an informal setting outside of committee and board. Speakers presented on a range of topics such as LGPS pooling, fiduciary responsibility, responsible investment, good governance, cyber security, and the Scheme Advisory Board. And I'd welcome any feedback and suggestions for next year's event. On to our next slide, where we talk about the national LGPS frameworks. As a reminder, these frameworks, these procurement frameworks for the LGPS are hosted by the Norfolk Pension Fund. The team held its annual meeting of founder authorities on the 12th of November. The success of the national frameworks relies upon the engagement and participation of those founder authorities, founder funds. And at the annual meeting, we had over 30 attended, and it was really encouraging and pleasing to see that they gave their full support to the Frameworks Forward programme. And that programme includes the scheduled launch of a new actuarial benefits and governance consultancy framework in January next year, followed by a benchmarking and cost transparency framework in April. So I think that brings us to the end of our operational and administrative updates, other than just to consider the admission agreements. And Chair, would you like to hand over to Alex just to say a few words on those?
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Chair, and good morning. We've got 3 admission agreements this time around, and as Glenn alluded to, should the consultation around Fair Deal go ahead, then this won't be a feature going forward. It won't replace the obligation to protect the LGPS membership for transferring staff, but it will allow them to maintain their LGPS membership in a manner that should be more timely and hopefully more efficient in the implementation, but we do wait and see what the practical outcomes of that are. In this case, we've got 3 pretty standard agreements, and these will remain in place until the end of the contracts under the current regime. They are for competitive cleaning services, which is Duchess of Lancashire Primary and Academy, Caterlink, which is a more general contract with the Diocese of Ely Multi-Academy Trust, and finally Birkin Cleaning Services, which is part of, is contracting with the University Technical College. Caterlink have existing participation in the fund. The other 2 are admissions from new organisations. But with that, unless there are any questions, I'd just point you towards the recommendation for the noting of these admission agreements.
Thank you for that report, and thank you also, Alex, for introducing the last item. I'd just like to say, before we open this up to members, I really enjoyed the 2 training days. I thought they were superbly run and very interesting. So I would like to thank the team for organising that. Thank you. Also, I thought I'd like to congratulate the team on the Governance Award, which is good news. Congratulations to you all. Okay, any questions from the floor? Brian, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask Glenn what his view is with regard to the sort of general direction of travel within LGPS towards encouraging local investment, and is this generally a uniform approach across the different pools that exist, and what would you regard as the sort of main challenges and obstacles for moving that forward? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So local investment is a feature of the Fit for Future consultation that we've just been talking about in this report. So we will see the requirement to consider local investment opportunities placed in regulation. I think specifically from what I've seen of the draft regulations, there will need to be commentary in our investment strategy statement going forward. And that commentary around local investment, one of the requirements there will be for us as a pension fund, for you as a pensions committee, to consider target levels for local investment. Local investment, there's also a definition around what do we mean by local. Again, what we're seeing in the Fit for Future latest technical release is some kind of definition around that being both the pool, the LGPS pool, and we know that we're talking about the central pool, but also acknowledging the local fund area, so for us, Norfolk. I think another consideration when we talk about local investment is in the Fit for Future consultation, where it was talking about devolution, local government devolution and elected mayors and combined authorities. And it was talking about going forward the need for the LGPS pools, so in our case the central pool, LGPS central pool, to consider and work with the mayoral authority, the combined authority. So for us that would be the Norfolk and Suffolk mayoral authority. So that's what we know, that's the emerging landscape, and we're now starting to talk to the Central Pool. Central Pool are presenting today. The Chief Executive is attending to give a presentation to this committee. I think local investments will be one of the things he will touch upon under item 9 today. So you can hear it from a LGPS Central Pool perspective. But I think that's what we're now looking at. We're looking at the enactment of this through regulation, the need to set out and think about this as a committee, set out our targets for local investment, acknowledging combined authorities and the role that mayors will play going forward, and that being delivered, if you like, through the LGPS Central Pool. Thank you.
Excuse me, any more questions for Glenn? Oh, no? Okay. I think we'll move on to the next item then, which is in the hands...
Just need to do the recommendation.
Oh, sorry. There is a recommendation. Sorry, we need to agree. I thought we'd agreed that, but anyway. Yeah, so the agreement is on the screen, or the recommendation's on the screen. Do we all agree with that? All in favour? Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so the next item is an update from the Pensions Oversight Board, and which is in the hands of Brian and I believe Joe.
Thank you, Chair. The slides are on the screen. The first slide was just pointing to the recommendation which comes at the end of this update. The slide on the screen at the moment updates committee on board membership. One of the employers' seats remains vacant, although an attendee at the Employers' Forum last week has asked for more details, which is hopeful because we filled one of the vacancies once before as somebody coming forward from that Employers' Forum, and she's proved to be quite an integrated member of the team. Meanwhile, we also welcome back Frances Crum. When I say welcome back, she's had continuity, but her term had come to an end. There was a vote of the membership, and Frances has been returned as representatives for actors and deferred, so we welcome her back. The board was updated on operational issues in line with those in today's agenda. So you see the items on the screen. They are covered on your agenda today. So move on to the next slide, which is the forward work programme. The board continues to oversight TPR compliance and cyber risk management. All members of POB attended the joint training in November and, like the chair, enjoyed the experience and felt that it was an excellent team effort. Some came along to the Employers' Forum, and a number have signed up for the SAB Governance Conference at the end of January. And yesterday I attended the Access update meeting as an observer. That was a virtual meeting, attended also by your chair and Glenn and another member of the board. So that's an update as to where we're going. So we move on to the final slide, which really is a simple recommendation asking committee today to note the contents of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any comments or questions for Brian? No? Well, thank you for that. We have a recommendation, which is just to note this report, so I assume we're all happy with that. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank Brian for the work of the board, as Glenn mentioned earlier. That falls into our governance, which we got an award for. So that's very well done. The next item on the agenda is the risk register report and compliance with breaches policy, and I believe this is in the hands of Alex and Charlotte. Oh, is it you? I've got it down here as you, Alex.
Right, thank you, Chair.
I do apologise.
Yeah, no, I misled you there when we did the briefing, so apologies for that. Yes, item 6, risk register. I think it's on page 64 if you're following it in your reports. So the fund maintains detailed risk register in accordance with the County Council's risk management framework. That risk framework evaluates likelihood and impact of risk and records the mitigating action that we are taking to address a particular risk. We use a 5x5 scoring matrix, and a score of 16 and over is deemed to be a high risk. Overall, our risk management remains effective and our service is resilient. So moving on to this slide, we actually reproduce here what we call the risk heat map. So this details our current risks, but also shows the risk movement since we last reported to Pensions Committee. And this time we are reporting 8 risks that have reduced in their score and 2 that have increased. So I'll focus on the 2 risks that have increased first of all. Risk G7 is lack of skilled resource in the governance team. Now this has been increased to an amber risk, a score of 12. And this has been done to recognise that we do have 2 staff retirements. Our business support officer is retiring in January, and our head of governance is retiring at the end of March. Now, to mitigate this risk, as I updated in the administration report, we have already restructured the team. We are now currently recruiting to that restructured team, and the new structure will go live from the 1st of January. So that should allow us a period of handover in terms of tasks and responsibilities. Moving on to the other increased risk, this is risk F7. Its title is default by a participating employer, scheme employer. Now I should stress that this still remains a low green risk. But the risk has really been adjusted, the scoring's been adjusted because of the work that we've been doing on the valuation this year. And it's really just to readdress the financial and reputational risk of a non-tax-back employer defaulting. So you will see that risk F7, a green risk on that risk heat map. Now, the other 8 risks that have reduced, I think they reflect progress we've been making with the valuation, our progress in terms of responding to the government's initial requirements under the Fit for Future consultation and our submission to government at the end of September in terms of our preferred pool being the central pool. And also some good progress in terms of skills and knowledge within our staff teams. But the one risk in particular that I'd like to highlight that has also reduced relates to member services, or pension services rather, and the connection to the National Dashboards Programme by the 30th of October. That was a hard and fast date of connection to the pensions dashboard eco-structure, and that was a significant milestone for the fund. So some really hard work and good progress made there that facilitated that connection. Work continues in terms of the National Dashboards Programme, in terms of user testing of that ecosystem, and we anticipate that it will go live for users in 12 months' time, October next year. So moving on to our one area of high risk, and that relates to cyber and data security. It has a score of 16. Now this reflects the fact that pensions remain a prime target for cyber and financial crime. Now we, as previously reported to committee, we have an ongoing programme supporting our cyber and data strategy aimed at mitigating and managing those risks, which is being monitored by the Pensions Oversight Board. Cyber and data training is mandatory for all our staff, and the fund works really closely with colleagues in the Corporate Authority's Digital Services and Information Governance team, as well as our stakeholders, our external suppliers. Over the summer, the fund commissioned Aon to conduct an independent review of our cyber governance arrangements. And we did present this on an informal basis to Pensions Committee and Pensions Board at the November training. Now these findings, or the findings of this review, this independent review, are being formally presented to Pensions Committee today under item 10. And then finally, to close out this presentation, section 4 in your report highlights that there are no reportable breaches this quarter to bring to your attention. So with that, Chair, happy to move to questions and recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Any questions for Glenn? Oh, Brian?
Thank you, Chair. I think Glenn's covered the points that I was going to raise about the loss of skill and resource. As you say, be losing 2 senior people within the next few months, but obviously arrangements are in place to recruit 2 able replacements for those 2 posts. I mean, I think my concern when I read that part of the report was, you know, how we can ensure that we retain that sort of knowledge and expertise that we have had within the team for a very long time, and just to sort of seek an assurance that that will obviously be taken care of. I'm sure it will be.
Yes, thank you for your question. Arrangements are underway. We have made good progress. Been supported. We've received really good support in terms of the organisational structure and the redesign of that from corporate HR. So we received good support there. We're able to progress it at speed, which is why this week, tomorrow, in fact, we're doing the first interviews for some of those. Roles that exist within the reorganisation, and we will meet our target of 1st of January go live, which is really good, and that does allow that period of handover as well. Of course, they are senior roles, and you know, I think as it does with any new role, anybody coming into a new role, it will take time for somebody to get up to speed, to be familiar. But one of the things that we've really encouraged as a fund is given thought within succession planning in terms of experience and development of individuals. And also resilience as well in terms of how tasks can be shared with other people. So, you know, you're not relying on just one individual in terms of performing and understanding and having the knowledge to complete or perform a task. So they are things that we've actively implemented and worked on over a long period of time as a fund. So, you know, change and people leaving, retiring is always a big event. But I feel that we are well placed and made good progress in terms of these 2 particular events that are coming up next year. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No? In which case, the recommendation is that we note the contents of the risk register and the summary of breaches. Okay. Right. Next item on the agenda is the Access and LGPS Central Pool update, which is again in the hands of Glenn.
Right. There we go. So just a little bit of a recap before we get into the contents of this slide and the report. So in response to the government's Fit for Future consultation and the Minister's letter of the 9th of April 2025, the Norfolk Pension Fund settled and selected, after due diligence, the LGPS Central Pool as its preferred pooling partner going forward. And the decision to join the Central Pool was ratified by Pensions Committee and communicated to government at the end of September. However, this report updates Pensions Committee on the work that's being undertaken by the Access Pool, our existing current pool, to assist the access authorities, all 11 access authorities, in their transition to the new pooling arrangement. So for Norfolk, that will be the transition to the LGPS Central Pool. And it highlights the report highlights some of the fund's preparations and the work being undertaken to join the central pool. We go into more detail in item 9 later on today's agenda. As Brian, our chair of Pensions Oversight Board, commented earlier, the Joint Committee met yesterday on the 1st of December. This was a virtual briefing rather than a face-to-face meeting, as the updates and the reports were for noting rather than any formal decisions or recommendations. So, looking at the work being undertaken by Access to support access authorities to implement their pooling decisions, to join different pools. So I think it's just worth mentioning that within Access and the 11 access authorities, we have 4 access authorities who are transitioning onboarding to LGPS Central Pool, and 7 that are transitioning and onboarding to Borders to Coast. And Access have put in place a project called Project Connect. That's why this slide is titled Project Connect. Project Connect will involve the collaboration with multiple parties. Ourselves as funds, stakeholders and suppliers, Waystone, the operator, Northern Trust, as well as the new pools, LGPS Central, Borders to Coast. And as a project, it also consists of a number of work streams, and I've bullet pointed those work streams on the slide. There's 3 of them. There's a governance work stream, and one of the tasks that Access is working on at the moment is the revision of the inter-authority agreement, and that's important because that document needs to reflect how Access will go about winding itself up as a pool, how it will eventually cease. The second work stream is asset transition. So this is all the plans about the migration of listed and non-listed assets from Access Pool, in our case to LGPS Central Pool, and for some of those other funds, Borders to Coast. And then the third and final work stream is support and resources. And there's a number of sort of sub streams to this, but one of the things that they're looking at is reviewing our contracts. And some of those contracts can be terminated early, some will run their duration, others may need to be renegotiated as we wind up the Access Pool. Now, the project itself, Project Connect, is being overseen by a programme board, and that consists of the Access Section 151 officers or their designated deputies. Hymans Robertson are providing project management support and consultancy support to this wind-up programme, and legal support is being provided by Squires, Patton Boggs. Importantly, yesterday, the Joint Committee were informed that in terms of the overall project RAG status, red, amber, green status, at the end of November, a green rating had been applied, and that was reflecting the fact that at the moment, all the key deliverables across all those 3 work streams were on track. So moving on, again, this was another item discussed and updates given at yesterday's Joint Committee, and this concerns the business plan and budget. Now, this revised business plan and budget reflects Project Connect, so the activities to wind up and transition assets. The budget for this year is 2.7 million for Project Connect. That's 247,000 per access authority. And the Joint Committee received the latest forecast and that indicated an underspend at the moment of around 350,000, which mainly relates to external professional support costs and some project contingency that they built into the budget. The Joint Committee and ourselves as officers will obviously continue to monitor that for the remainder of this year. And it is also worth mentioning that this budget is for the remainder of this financial year, but the activities and therefore the expenditure in connection with winding up of Access will continue. So we will see service plans, business plans, and Project Connect continuing, and expenditure and budget being required going forward for some time. I think we've reported to this committee before, this project could have a lifespan of 3 years or more. Okay, moving on, just to say a few words about onboarding to the central pool, although we're going to go into more detail under item 9 on today's agenda. But again, just to introduce some of this to you. So there are 7 new partner funds joining the LGPS central pool. There are 4 from Access, and they're listed on the slide, along with 3 from the Brunel pool. If you remember that 9th of April letter from the Minister effectively gave instruction to wind up the Access pool and the Brunel pool. So 4 from Access, 3 from Brunel have selected Central and are onboarding to the LGPS Central pool. Those 7 new partner funds will combine with the 8 existing Central Pool partner funds. So going forward, the LGPS Central Pool will consist of 15 funds and have assets under management of around 100 billion. The 7 new partner funds have already signed a memo of understanding. Now, this is a commitment to collaborate. It's a non-binding legal agreement, but it's a commitment to collaborate and allows us to move forward with some of this onboarding work. And this is really pending the first of those bullet points and next bullet points, whereby those 3, again, work streams, if you like, are being delivered under what LGPS Central is calling Programme Bridge. And the first of those 3 bullet points there is the requirement for us, 7 new partner funds, to be admitted as shareholders of the LGPS Central Pool. So we have a memo of understanding at the moment, but we will be moving towards, and item 9 talks about this in detail, moving towards a shareholder agreement going forward. The other key work stream between now and the 1st of April next year, and why 1st of April? Well, that's the regulatory requirement that we're seeing under Fit for the Future, is the discretionary oversight of all our fund assets and all those new partner funds assets from 1st of April next year. And then the development of a asset transition plan. So those assets will not transition on the 1st of April. That's why there'll be discretionary oversight of those assets. That's that longer term plan, 3+ years worth of work. But as new partner funds, we have to sign that transition plan off, and importantly, the pool must then submit that to MHCLG. So, as I've mentioned earlier, there will be a further update, a more deeper dive into this, our onboarding arrangements to the central pool, shareholder agreements, etc. And that will be under item 9, where the Chief Exec of the central pool will present to you. But for now, happy to take any questions or move to the recommendation.
Any questions for Glenn? No? Okay. Thank you very much. The recommendation is up on the screen. Invited to consider and note only. So we'll move on to
Coffee break.
the coffee break.
Comfort break.
Oh, I wasn't going to call it that.
But there's the exclusion of public.
We've got the exclusion first. Okay, so we're going to exclude the exclusion of the public now we're moving on to, and I'll just read out this. The committee is asked to consider excluding the public from the meeting under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 from consideration of the items below on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by paragraph 3 and 5 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. The committee will be presented with the conclusion of the public interest test carried out by the report author and is recommended to confirm the exclusion. Now I'd like to hand over to Nicola to read out the next bit.
The reports within agenda items 9 to 15 contain financial, business and commercial information, including details about third-party company operations which could significantly weaken their position in a competitive environment by revealing this activity to competitors. Inappropriate disclosure would be likely to prejudice their interests, which may expose the Norfolk Pension Fund, Norfolk County Council to legal action in the future. Is everybody in agreement?
Thank you, Nicola. The public meeting now ends and everyone can take a 15-minute break. We'll be back here for the major part of the meeting. This is a lot of stuff to go through. Thank you.